I was raised in wealth, luxury, and privilege. My father was a businessman, my mother a socialite. I was the daughter who always obeyed, never questioned. Life was easy, but it often felt hollow, like a beautiful, golden cage. It was the summer of my 21st year when I first met Armin. My family had decided to renovate our countryside villa, and my father hired local workers for the project. I wasn't supposed to interact with them, such was the unspoken rule of our world, but curiosity got the better of me. One afternoon, while the sun blazed mercilessly, I saw him. He stood in the garden, carefully carving a piece of wood. His hands were rough but skilled, and there was an honesty in his expression that I found captivating. "Excuse me," I called out, stepping off the veranda. He looked up, startled. "Yes, His voice was soft, his tone polite. "What are you making?" I asked. "A window frame, miss," he replied. "For the guest room." I nodded. There was something about the way he spoke, simple, direct, and sincere. For weeks, I watched him from a distance, pretending not to care, but secretly fascinated. He had a quiet strength about him, something raw and unpolished, unlike the men I'd grown up around. One evening, I found myself walking toward him as he was cleaning up for the day. "You work hard," I said. He smiled faintly. "That's how I earn my bread, miss." I don't know why I kept talking, but I did. "Do you like your work?" "It's honest work," he said, his eyes meeting mine for the first time. They were deep, dark, and serious. "But I dream of more. I want to open my own shop someday, a place where I can sell what I make." It surprised me. Dreams weren't something I associated with people like him, at least not in the way I'd been taught. His dreams seemed real. From that day forward, I started joining him in the evenings, watching as he worked. He would tell me about his life, his family, his struggles, his hopes. In return, I shared stories of my world, though I left out the parts one wasn't proud of: the parties, the gossip, the endless pretenses. Over time, our conversations became the highlight of my days. Armin wasn't like anyone I'd ever met. He didn't care about money or appearances. He valued hard work, honesty, and kindness. One day, he caught me staring at him as he sanded a wooden chair. "Why do you spend time with me, miss?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe because you're different." "Different how?" "You're real," I said. "You're not trying to impress anyone. You just are." His laughter was low and genuine. "And you, miss? Why do you want to know someone like me? You have everything." I hesitated. "Maybe I don't have as much as you think." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The connection between us felt electric, like something unspoken but understood. When my father discovered that I had been spending time with Armin, he was furious. "Alina," he thundered. "What on earth are you thinking, talking to that laborer? He's not just a laborer, father. He's a person," I said, my voice trembling. "He is not your equal," my father snapped. "You're a Malik, a respected name. Do you know what people would say if they found out? You're ruining your reputation." My mother tried to intervene gently. "Alina, darling, this is for your own good. Men like him, they can never fit into our world." But I couldn't bring myself to agree with them. I had seen something in Armin that they hadn't, a decency and strength that transcended social status. After that confrontation, I wasn't allowed near the renovation site. But I couldn't stay away. Late in the evenings, after my parents were asleep, I would sneak out to see Armin. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered one night, his voice a mix of concern and frustration. "And yet, here I am," I said with a soft smile. He shook his head but couldn't hide the warmth in his eyes. "You're risking too much." "So are you," I replied. Those stolen moments became my sanctuary. We talked about everything: life, love, dreams. Slowly but surely, I realized that I was falling in love with him. One evening, as the stars glittered above us, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Armin," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I think I love you." He looked at me, stunned. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, he reached out, his calloused hand brushing against mine. "Alina, you don't know what you're saying. Your world and mine, they don't match." Who decides that? I said, tears welling up in my eyes. Why should it matter where you come from? You've shown me more kindness and honesty than anyone in my world ever has. His expression softened, and he pulled me close. I love you too, Alina, he said quietly. But love isn't always enough. When my family learned of my feelings for Armin, all hell broke loose. My father threatened to disown me. My mother pleaded with me to end it, calling it a mistake. You'll ruin your life, Alina, she said, tears streaming down her face. This isn't love, it's infatuation. But I knew it wasn't a mistake. Armin's love was the most real thing I had ever experienced. You can take away my money, my name, everything, I told my father. But you can't take him away from me. For weeks, the house was filled with tension. I felt like a prisoner, suffocated by my family's expectations. One day, my father gave me an ultimatum: leave Armin or leave the family. It was the hardest decision I'd ever faced. But in the end, I chose Armin. I packed a small bag and left the mansion, my heart heavy but determined. Armin was shocked when I showed up at his small home in the village. Alina, what are you doing here? He asked, his voice filled with both joy and worry. I chose you, I said simply. Life with Armin was far from easy. We had little money and no luxuries, but we had each other. Together, we worked hard to build a life. Armin's dream of opening his own shop became our shared goal. I learned to live simply, to appreciate the little things. And Armin, he showed me what true love and partnership meant. Years passed, and though life tested us many times, our love never wavered. Armin's shop became successful, and my family, though still distant, eventually came to accept us. Looking back, I realized that choosing Armin wasn't just about love, it was about finding myself. He taught me the value of honesty, humility, and hard work. Our love story wasn't perfect, but it was real. And in the end, that's all that mattered.